As a child, the flash of lightning, the hard downpour of heavy rain, and worst of all, the loud and unpredictable claps of thunder were enough to send me under the covers for days and stay there. And ghosts, my vivid imagination saw them in every shadow, heard them in every ominous creak or agonizing silence. I was positive there was a witch in my closet in every corner, a ghost hovering by the window, gremlins under my bed. Turns out I was in good company. Peter and the disciples on a routine fishing trip encounter a raging storm and what appears to be a ghostly figure walking toward them on the water. The disciples' reaction? Fear and faith. It's amazing how often these go hand in hand. In fact, in Matthew's telling of this incident, fear is mentioned 4 times in just 11 verses. They were terrified. They cried out in fear. Do not be afraid. And when he saw the wind, he was afraid.
Consider with me for a moment the words about fear and faith from theologian John McMurray. Fear and faith, inseparable on our journey with Jesus. This story in Matthew's Gospel is a call to step out in faith even in the midst of troubled waters, to be faithful to the call of Christ. But stepping out in faith is never a guarantee we will not face troubled waters or be filled with fear. What are you afraid of? Trying to keep your head above water in one of the worst economic recessions ever? Afraid for those whose government relief benefits have been cut, will now barely make ends meet? Afraid the doctor will come into the exam room to tell you that you have tested positive for COVID-19 or that someone you love has been diagnosed with a terminal illness? Afraid of your mental health during these unprecedented times of social distancing and withdrawal from activities we took for granted? Afraid of the political mess our country seems unable to get out of? Afraid for our brothers and sisters who live daily in fear and disrespect, in poverty, prejudice, and daily injustice because of the color of their skin or their sexual orientation? Afraid of the unknown, of questions that have no clear answers. The modern master of fear, Stephen King, said this recently: "Fear marks our times. We're afraid the government is going to take away our guns. We're afraid that Mexico is going to invade the United States. We're afraid of this. We're afraid of that. We're afraid of taxes. We're afraid of a transgender bathroom." As long as people are fearful, it's hard to have a rational discussion. And then the master of our lives, Jesus, put it much more succinctly to Peter and to us. Do not be afraid.
Today's gospel offers 3 antidotes to fear. First, like Peter, we need to move out of our comfort zone, jump into the deep waters, take the plunge. Following Jesus is not always going to lead us to the restful waters of Psalm 23. Just as often it'll feel like we're up to our neck and drowning, and it should. Pastor Ernest Campbell of Riverside Church in New York City has said, "The reason we seem to lack faith is that we are not doing anything that requires faith. The key to courageous faith is to follow Peter's example, step out of the boat into the troubled waters of the world, to proclaim love, mercy, and justice." The second antidote to fear: take hold of the hand that is offered us. Fear is a terrible thing to face alone, and we don't have to. Beginning to sink, Peter cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him, Matthew tells us. Immediately. This story was told to proclaim loud and clear that Jesus has the power to reach out a hand to anyone who's afraid, who's drowning, more often than not through our hands, our efforts, our compassion, our service. The third and final antidote to fear from today's gospel: prayer. Before Jesus set out onto the raging waters, he goes off by himself to a quiet place to pray. Matthew is making a clear parallel here between the life of Jesus and the mighty things Jesus accomplishes. He goes away to pray and only then walks on the raging waters. It is the prayer before the storm that informs a sure-footed, do not be afraid state of mind when the winds and the turbulence of our lives pick up. Do not be afraid.